Amy Winehouse, A Tragic Hollywood Story by Jessica Parker. Amy Winehouse is the true definition of a tragic Hollywood story. Um, Amy was a star through and through. Grew up around music and performers alike. She dropped out of high school to follow her dreams, earning a fortune, winning 5 Grammys, and ultimately dying at the age of 27. There is a club called the 27 Club that consists of all the celebrities that died at the young age of 27. This club includes Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and so many more. Amy Winehouse was from London, England, born September 14th in the suburbs of London to a taxi driving dad and a pharmacist mom. She was the youngest of 2 kids. Though her family was your average blue-collar family, she grew up around a lot of musicians and performers. Her 2 uncles were famous jazz performers, and her grandmother, her true inspiration, Cynthia, who's tattooed on her right arm, was a jazz singer as well, who dated jazz legend Ronnie Scott. Amy grew up listening to jazz, soul, hip hop, and rap. People like Frank Sinatra, Billie Holiday, and Salt-N-Pepa. Salt-N-Pepa actually inspired her and her friend at the young age of 10 to start a girl group of their own called Sweet and Sour. Her diverse musical background won her a scholarship at the prestigious school Sylvia Young Theater School. She was eventually expelled for not applying herself, they said, and for a nose piercing. This, however, motivated her. She wrote music for open mics, and she would eventually give her demo to one of her friends who was already signed to a record label, and soon after she was signed as well. Amy Winehouse was energetic, outspoken, full of life. She walked to the beat of her own drum, not conforming to social norms at all. This caused for very harsh criticism. People talked about the way she dressed. She is said to have dressed retro, kind of like in the 80s, mini skirts, short shorts, crop tops, a lot of times exposing her bra, lots of colors and patterns. Her signature, though, was the beehive hairstyle that she always wore. With all the criticism, though, it made her realize that she didn't want the fame. She really just loved the music, and she liked to express herself through music, and she could do this easily. She was always an emotional person. She struggled with self-harm and bulimia starting at a very young age. The turning point in her life, though, was the death of her grandmother in 2006. This is just 3 years after her debut album, Frank. Frank would gain Amy exposure in the UK, though it is not confirmed that Cynthia's death was the reason that Amy's life spiraled out of control. But from the timeline, this looks to be the case. In 2006, Amy released her second album, Back to Black, featuring Rehab, which won Brit Awards for Best Album, Best Solo Artist, but it didn't debut in the US until 2007. When it did, her life was so out of control at this point, she could not even attend the Grammys and had to perform in London because she couldn't get visas into the US. Now, back on track, after the death of her grandmother, she would make some of the worst decisions of her life. Marrying her soon-to-be ex-husband. They met in 2005. They both partied very hard. His name was Blake, by the way. This was the basis of their relationship. Blake actually admitted to introducing her to hard drugs. Even still, they decided to elope in Miami, May 2007. Just a few short months later, Amy overdosed on not only alcohol, but K2, heroin, cocaine, ecstasy. This landed them both in rehab, all by August. As soon as they got out of rehab, they immediately used again. 2 short months after this, in October, they were jailed for drugs in Norway. This did not stop them. January 2008, there was a video released on TMZ of Amy Winehouse smoking from a pipe. This video was recorded in her home by one of her acquaintances. She was denied visas at this point, which stopped her from touring in the United States altogether. She had already been famously late and noticeably under the influence, slurring words, stumbling, even hitting fans. And if you thought things couldn't get worse, Blake was arrested. She was depressed again. She was hospitalized for emphysema from smoking crack cocaine and cigarettes. This did not stop the media from posting horrible pictures of her, displaying her scars from self-harm and how small she was from drug abuse and bulimia. At the end of 2008, early 2009, she was entered into the Guinness Book of World Records for winning the most Grammys of any British artist. The next 2 years she spent trying to get her life together, out of the media, battling her demons on her own, staying out of jail in the tabloids. June 2011, 2 years later, she scheduled another tour. Her first tour, she appeared at the concert 1 hour after she was released from rehab. Drunk, she was booed off stage. She couldn't finish. The rest of her tour was then canceled. This would be the end of Amy's legacy. Not seen again until the release of her death. It was speculated that it was a drug overdose. Most know that Amy struggled with addiction. It was then released that she died from alcohol poisoning in her home after binging, watching videos of herself, and drinking what was said to be 3 bottles of alcohol. Most know Amy as a drug-addicted English firecracker with a big voice and personality to match. She had an energetic spirit. So sorry. Rehab, her most famous song, not only reflected her life, but truly the person behind it. I wanted to end this with a quote from an interview she did for the Daily Mail. And she was asked how she writes her songs, and she responded, "With rehab, I was walking down the street with Mark Ronson, who produced my last album. I just sang the hook out loud. It was quite silly, really." She was then asked, "Did you sing the no, no, no bit as well?" She said, "Yeah, I sang the whole line exactly as it turned out on the record." Mark laughed and asked me who wrote it because he liked it. I told him that I just made it up, but that it was true, and he encouraged me to turn it into a song. I wrote that song in 5 minutes. The end.